The night my parents disowned me, I thought I was losing my family. I had no idea I was about to find the one that had been searching for me my entire life. 3 tables away sat a woman I had never seen before. She couldn't stop staring at me. At first I thought she was just being rude. By the end of the night I would discover she was my mother. And everything I believed about my life would fall apart. My name is Lily. At least that's the name I grew up with. For 25 years I believed I knew exactly who I was. I believed I knew where I came from. I believed I knew who my family was. I was wrong. The truth had been hidden from me my entire life. And on my 25th birthday it finally came crashing down. The restaurant was beautiful. Warm golden lights hung from the ceiling. Soft music played in the background. People laughed around me. Servers carried plates filled with expensive food. It should have been a perfect night. My parents had reserved a large section of the restaurant. Friends, relatives, co-workers. Almost 30 people had shown up. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except my mother. She had been tense all evening. Every time someone mentioned how much older I looked now, her smile seemed forced. Every time someone asked about my future plans, she looked uncomfortable. I noticed it immediately. Something felt wrong. I tried ignoring it. I didn't want drama on my birthday. Not this year. Especially not after everything that had happened recently. The last few months had been difficult. Questions I had carried my entire life had become impossible to ignore. Questions about why I looked so different from everyone else. Questions about why I never resembled either parent. Questions about why nobody in the family liked talking about my birth. Whenever I asked, they changed the subject. Whenever I pushed harder, they became defensive. It never made sense. But that night I planned to enjoy myself. For once. I stood and raised my glass. Thank you all for coming. The room cheered. I laughed. For a brief moment, everything felt normal. Then my aunt said something that changed everything. She smiled at me. You know, Lily, every year you look less and less like your mother. The table went silent. Immediately. Every conversation stopped. Every smile disappeared. My aunt's expression changed. She looked horrified. Like she had accidentally said something she wasn't supposed to. I felt a strange knot form in my stomach. What does that mean? I asked. Nobody answered. My father cleared his throat. My mother stared at her plate. The silence stretched. And suddenly that familiar feeling returned. The feeling that everyone knew something about me that I didn't know. I forced a laugh. Okay, that's weird. Still nobody answered. My heartbeat sped up. Something wasn't right. Across the room, I noticed a woman staring at me. She sat with a family of 4. A man, 2 younger adults, and her. She looked emotional, almost like she was fighting back tears. The second our eyes met, she quickly looked away. I frowned. Strange. Very strange. But before I could think more about it, my father stood up. Lily, he said. His voice sounded cold. Not loving. Not proud. Cold. I had never heard him sound like that before. The room became silent again. My stomach dropped. I knew something bad was coming. I just didn't know how bad. There's something we need to discuss. I looked around. Nobody would meet my eyes. Not my cousins. Not my aunts. Not even my mother. Fear crept into my chest. What are you talking about? My father exhaled slowly. Then he said the words that shattered my world. We're done supporting you. The room froze. I blinked. What? We're done. I stared at him, certain I had misunderstood. This had to be some kind of joke. Terrible joke. Nobody laughed. Nobody smiled. My father continued. You're 25 now. His voice remained emotionless. We have sacrificed enough. I looked toward my mother. She couldn't even look at me. The fear in my chest became panic. Dad. No. The single word hit harder than a slap. For the first time in my life, he looked at me like I was a stranger. Like I didn't belong there. Like I never had. And somehow, the way everyone avoided my eyes made me realize this conversation wasn't spontaneous. It had been planned. Every second of it. Including my humiliation. Including my birthday. Including tonight. I wasn't being celebrated. I was being dismissed. And I still had no idea why. I couldn't breathe. The The restaurant suddenly felt too small, too hot, too crowded. 30 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, waiting, watching, like everyone knew what was happening except me. Dad, what are you talking about? My voice barely came out. He folded his hands together, the same way he did when discussing business, the same way he did when making important decisions, except this time the decision was me. You've become difficult, Lily. I stared at him. Difficult? Yes. His jaw tightened. You keep asking questions. The words hit me like a punch. Questions. Of course. The questions. The questions nobody wanted to answer. The questions I've been asking for months. Questions about my birth. Questions about family records. Questions about why there weren't any baby pictures of mom pregnant with me. Questions about why every conversation seemed to end in awkward silence. Questions about why I looked nothing like anyone else. I felt my pulse pounding. So that's what this is about. Nobody answered. My mother looked like she wanted to disappear. My father remained stone-faced. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely afraid of him. You embarrassed us, he said. The room remained silent. I looked around. Not a single relative spoke up. Not one. My aunt stared into her water glass. My uncle pretended to check his phone. Even my cousins looked uncomfortable. Nobody defended me. Nobody. A painful realization settled inside me. They all knew. Whatever this secret was, they all knew. And I didn't. My eyes drifted toward the other side of the restaurant. The woman was still staring. Only now she wasn't hiding it. Tears filled her eyes. The man sitting beside her placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. The younger woman next to her looked emotional too. I frowned. Why were strangers reacting to my family drama? It made no sense. Then the older woman whispered something, and the younger woman started crying. A chill ran through my body. Something was very wrong. Very, very wrong. I turned back toward my parents. Tell me the truth. Nobody spoke. Tell me. My voice cracked. Still nothing. I slammed my hands onto the table. The sound echoed through the restaurant. Several people jumped. I deserved to know. My mother finally looked up. And the expression on her face terrified me. Because she looked guilty. Not angry. Not annoyed. Guilty. As if she'd been carrying something heavy for years. Something she desperately didn't want me to discover. Lily, she whispered. My heart sank. That tone. That look. I suddenly knew. The answer I'd been searching for my entire life was about to come out. And I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it anymore. What? I asked quietly. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. Tears appeared in her eyes. My father immediately interrupted. Don't. His voice was sharp, controlling, warning. Mom instantly fell silent. I stared at him. Something inside me snapped. No. I pointed at him. No more secrets. People shifted uncomfortably around the tables. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Even strangers were watching. I didn't care anymore. I was tired. Tired of feeling like an outsider. Tired of feeling different. Tired of sensing that everyone knew something I didn't. You've been hiding something from me my whole life. Nobody denied it. Not one person. That told me everything. My chest tightened. Oh my God. The realization hit me before anyone could say it. The pieces suddenly connected. Every awkward silence. Every changed subject. Every nervous glance. Every unanswered question. Every strange reaction whenever I mentioned family resemblance. I looked at my mother. Then my father. Then everyone else. My voice came out as barely a whisper. I'm adopted. Gasps spread through the room. Several relatives immediately looked away. My mother began crying. My father closed his eyes. And that was all the confirmation I needed. The world tilted beneath me. 25 years. 25 years. And nobody had told me. Not one person. Not one. I stepped backward. My legs felt weak. The room blurred. I heard crying. I heard whispers. I heard someone saying my name. But it all sounded distant. Like I was underwater. I looked toward my mother. Is it true? She couldn't answer. That hurt more than any words could. Because silence was an answer. and it was destroying me. Then something unexpected happened. A chair scraped across the floor. Everyone turned. The woman from the other table had stood up. The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were red. The man beside her tried stopping her, but she gently moved past him. Slowly, carefully. She walked toward me. Every step made my heart beat faster. I had never seen her before. Yet for some reason, looking at her felt strangely familiar. The closer she came, the more emotional she became. By the time she reached my table, tears were streaming down her face. The restaurant was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The woman looked directly into my eyes. And for a moment, neither of us said anything. It felt like time itself had stopped. Then she whispered 4 words. 4 words that changed my life forever. I finally found you. My breath caught. The room spun. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who my family was anymore. I finally found you. The words echoed in my head. For a second I thought I'd imagined them. The restaurant was completely silent. Every person in the room was staring at us. The woman stood only a few feet away. Tears streamed down her face. Her hands trembled. And for some reason, so did mine. I swallowed hard. What? My voice barely worked. The woman looked at me as if she couldn't believe I was real. As if she had spent years imagining this moment. Years dreaming about it. Years hoping for it. And now she didn't know what to do. The man from her table slowly approached. His expression was emotional but calm. Protective. Like he was worried she might fall apart. "Sarah," he said softly. The woman nodded. But she never looked away from me. Not once. It was unsettling. And yet strangely familiar. I couldn't explain it. I looked around. Everyone at my family's table looked terrified. Not surprised. Terrified. My stomach twisted. Why? Why were they acting like this? What did they know? The woman took another step closer. "Lily." I froze. I had never seen her before. Yet she knew my name. The realization hit me instantly. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This woman knew exactly who I was. My heartbeat exploded. "Who are you?" The question seemed to break her heart. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "My name is Sarah." Silence. I waited. Nothing. Just Sarah. No explanation. No answers. Just more confusion. I was about to ask again when the younger woman from her table stepped forward. She looked around 22. Dark hair. Kind eyes. And oddly enough, she looked more like me than anyone in my family ever had. The thought made me dizzy. No. Impossible. The younger woman smiled sadly. "I think," she whispered. "I think I'm your sister." The world stopped. My brain refused to process the sentence. Sister. No. That couldn't be right. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. I laughed. A short, nervous laugh. The kind people make when reality becomes too ridiculous. No. Nobody laughed with me. Nobody. The younger woman started crying. The older man lowered his head. Sarah covered her mouth. And suddenly, the possibility felt real. Terrifyingly real. I turned toward my parents. My real parents. Or at least the people I'd always believed were my parents. Neither of them denied it. Not one word. Not one objection. Not one accusation. Nothing. Just silence. The silence of guilty people. My chest tightened painfully. Oh my God. I backed away. One step. Then another. My father stood. "Lily. Don't." I held up my hand. For the first time in my life he listened. I looked directly at him. "If she's lying, tell me." Silence. My pulse hammered. "If she's lying, say it." Nothing. My mother burst into tears. And that's when I knew. Everything. Every terrible possibility. Every fear. Every suspicion. It was all true. The woman standing in front of me wasn't a stranger. Not entirely. Somehow, she was connected to me. Connected enough to terrify the people who raised me. I felt sick. I sat down because my legs could no longer hold me. The room spun. The lights blurred. I couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process any of it. Sarah slowly reached into her purse. My father immediately stood. No. The word came out too quickly. Too forcefully. Sarah froze. Everyone noticed. Including me. My stomach dropped. Why was he panicking? What was she carrying? Sarah looked directly at him. For the first time her sadness disappeared. In its place was anger. 25 years of anger. 25 years of grief. 25 years of unanswered questions. She ignored him, then carefully removed a small plastic bag. Inside was a faded hospital bracelet. My heart nearly stopped. The bracelet looked old. Very old. The plastic had yellowed. The ink was barely visible. Sarah held it out. With shaking hands. I stared at it. Then I noticed something. A name. A date. And a hospital. My birthday. My exact birthday. The room exploded into whispers. My father looked like he had seen a ghost. My mother completely broke down. I stared at the bracelet. Then at Sarah. Then back at the bracelet. What is this? Sarah took a shaky breath. For 25 years, she said quietly. I've carried this everywhere. The restaurant was silent again. Nobody wanted to miss a single word. Sarah's voice cracked. It belonged to my baby girl. A chill raced through my entire body. The younger woman beside her started crying again. The older man wiped tears from his eyes. And for some reason, I felt tears forming too, even though I didn't fully understand why. Sarah continued. The baby they told me died. My heart stopped. The room gasped. Several people covered their mouths. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered on the floor. Nobody even looked. Every eye remained fixed on Sarah. On me. On my parents. Because suddenly everyone understood what was happening. And they were terrified of the answer. Sarah looked directly into my eyes. I held my daughter for 6 minutes. Her voice shook. 6 minutes. Tears rolled down her face. Then a nurse took her away. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The entire world had narrowed to her voice. An hour later they told me she was gone. My chest physically hurt. The pain in her voice was unbearable. Even strangers in the restaurant were crying. Sarah swallowed hard. But I never believed them. My father looked away. That tiny movement didn't escape me. And suddenly, a horrifying possibility entered my mind. A possibility so unbelievable that I didn't want to consider it. But the look on his face made it impossible to ignore. Sarah pointed at me. You have my eyes. Silence. You have my smile. More silence. You even tilt your head the same way I do when you're nervous. I froze. Because she was right. She was absolutely right. The younger woman beside her laughed through tears. And you laugh exactly like Mom. The room became eerily still. I looked at my parents. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother couldn't stop crying. And in that moment, I realized something. They weren't afraid I would discover I was adopted. That secret alone wouldn't explain this reaction. They were afraid of something much bigger. Something darker. Something that connected all of us. And whatever it was, it had been hidden for 25 years. Until tonight. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The entire restaurant seemed frozen. I looked from Sarah to my parents. Then back to Sarah. What are you saying? Sarah took a deep breath. I'm saying I think you're my daughter. The words hit like a freight train. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I wanted to reject it. Wanted to call it impossible. But the looks on my parents' faces stopped me. Because they didn't look shocked. They looked defeated. Like a secret they had spent decades protecting had finally caught up to them. That night ended in chaos. Numbers were exchanged. Arguments erupted. People cried. And I left without blowing out my birthday candles. The next morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a nightmare. It wasn't. Sarah had already texted me. One message. One sentence. I'll respect whatever you decide, but I think a DNA test will answer everything. Asterisk asterisk. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour. Then I replied. Okay. Asterisk asterisk. The next 3 weeks felt endless. I met Sarah several times. And every meeting made things more confusing. Not because she seemed fake. Because she seemed real. Painfully real. She showed me old photographs. Pictures of herself at my age. The resemblance was undeniable. Same eyes, same smile, same stubborn expression. She also introduced me to the younger woman, Emma, the woman who believed she was my sister. The strange thing was how natural everything felt. Not perfect, not magical, just familiar, comfortable, like meeting people I'd somehow known forever. Meanwhile, things with my parents became worse. Much worse. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every question was met with silence. Then the DNA results arrived. I opened the email alone. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my phone. I scanned the document, then found the number. 99. 99%. Sarah was my biological mother. I read it again, and again, and again, hoping I was misunderstanding it. I wasn't. The woman from the restaurant wasn't a stranger. She was my mother. The family sitting 3 tables away wasn't another family. They were mine. And suddenly I didn't know who I was anymore. The DNA results answered one question, but created 100 more. How had this happened? Why had it happened? Who knew? A week later I finally got my answer, or at least part of it. My adoptive mother asked to meet me alone. She looked exhausted, older somehow, as if carrying this secret had aged her for years. We sat in silence for several minutes. Then she started crying. I never wanted this. I stared at her. Then tell me the truth. She nodded. Slowly. Painfully. And then she confessed. 25 years ago, she had been told she could never have children. It broke her. Destroyed her. Then one day, a family friend who worked at the hospital approached them. He claimed there was a newborn baby whose situation was complicated. A baby nobody would come looking for. A baby who needed a home. Me. She said they believed the story. Or at least wanted to believe it. Desperately. They signed papers. Paid fees. Asked very few questions. Because they were terrified the opportunity would disappear. Years later, doubts started appearing. Inconsistencies. Missing records. Conflicting documents. But by then they already loved me. And they were afraid. Afraid that if the truth surfaced they would lose me. So they stayed silent. For 25 years. I listened without speaking. Then asked the question that mattered most. Did you know I wasn't abandoned? My mother broke down. And that's when I got my answer. Because guilt speaks louder than words. The full investigation took months. Lawyers became involved. Hospital records were uncovered. Former employees were interviewed. And eventually the truth emerged. There had been corruption. A network of people profiting from illegal adoptions. Not a giant conspiracy. Not some movie-style operation. Just greedy people exploiting desperate families. Sarah's daughter had been declared dead. But she wasn't. She had been handed to another family. My family. Me. When the final report was completed, nobody won. Not really. Sarah had lost 25 years. My adoptive parents had lived with fear for 25 years. And I had spent 25 years not knowing who I truly was. But something unexpected happened. Instead of choosing one family over another, I chose both. Because life wasn't black and white. The people who raised me had lied. But they had also loved me. The woman who gave birth to me had lost me. But she had never stopped searching. Both truths existed at the same time. And accepting that was harder than anything else. A year later, we celebrated my 26th birthday. This time there were no secrets. No lies. No hidden documents. No unanswered questions. Just family. A much bigger family than I ever imagined. Sarah sat beside me. Emma sat across from me. My adoptive mother helped cut the cake. My adoptive father actually smiled. For the first time in a long time. As everyone laughed around me, I looked at the candles. Then I thought about the night before my 25th birthday. The night I believed I was losing everything. I smiled. Because I finally understood something. That night wasn't the end of my family. It was the beginning. For 25 years I thought my story started with a secret. But it didn't. It started with people who loved me. People who searched for me. People who raised me. People who never gave up on me. And the family secret they hid for 25 years. It really was sitting 3 tables away. Waiting for the moment we would finally find each other. If this story touched your heart, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You never know who might still be searching for a missing piece of their story.